All right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. Again, we're reading The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. We are still in part 1. We're on chapter 2 now, which is Recognize Your Power. And remember, part 1 is all about perception. So chapter 2, Recognize Your Power, starts off by telling the story about Rubin Hurricane Carter, who was a former heavyweight boxer back in the 1960s, a guy who was constantly competing for the heavyweight title. And then in his prime, at the top of his game, was all of a sudden accused of a triple homicide. And in that, he was sentenced to 3 life sentences. So you just think about that. He was one of the best of the best. And then boom, just like that, everything was taken away from him. And so after he was found guilty and sentenced to those 3 life sentences, they took him in. He was wearing a tailored suit, a $5,000 watch. And they had to take everything from him, throw it in a box, and gave him his jumpsuit. And the one thing that he made sure he relayed the message to everybody around him, all the guards, everybody who was putting him in, was that he wouldn't give up the last thing that he controlled. And that last thing was himself. Even though he accepted the sentence, he wouldn't give up himself. And so Rubin ended up spending 19 years in prison for something that he didn't do before he was finally released. And another thing, too, as he was going in, he wanted to make the point that he would not be treated like a prisoner because he was not a prisoner. He knew he was innocent, and in that sense, he will never be powerless. So that's huge by saying that. When you're saying that you'll never be powerless, that means you're never going to give up your attitude. You're never going to give up your beliefs. You're never going to give up your choices. Or like we talked about yesterday, a big part of that discussion was your reactions. Like you still have control of all 3 of those things. And that's the one thing that he was never going to make sure that he gave that up. And he also understood that getting angry about the entire situation would not be constructive in any way. So he knew he had to keep an even keel about it the entire time he was in there and just find ways to better himself. So he did a ton of reading. He did a lot of physical exercise. He studied law. He studied philosophy. Anything he knew that he could help build himself up given the situation he was in. And he never, in like a big part, like kind of coming full circle, is like he didn't decide what was going to happen to him, similar to how we are. We didn't decide that we were going to have to miss spring practice and have to go home and spend an extended period of time there. But he did control how he would handle it, just like we can control how we're handling this situation. And just thinking about Rubin again, like a guy that can handle an unjust prison sentence like that and still find it beneficial, there's nothing that we can encounter that we can't feel as though it can transform us into something better, or that we ourselves can't find beneficial. So I think that's a huge point. And then like we keep driving that point home, I think I'm going to reiterate it every day, but a situation, think about his, think about ours. Nothing is neither good nor bad. It's all about how we perceive it. And it's all based on the story that we tell ourselves. And Shakespeare was even quoted as saying, there is an event, then the story we tell ourselves about it. And we decide what story to tell ourselves. That is our decision. That is our reaction. That's chapter 2. Everybody have a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed my humble abode here at Akron, as Coach Z refers to as Guantanamo Bay. Told Dre I'd give him a shout out. Told Samson I'd give him a shout out. So those guys better text me, or else I know they didn't watch it. All right, guys. See you next week.